The purpose of our expedition was to explore and survey from the air and on foot one of the last totally unknown areas on the whole North American continent. 10,000 square miles of mountains and glaciers in the St. Elias Range, lying on the Canadian side of the boundary between Alaska and Canada. By railroad, we followed the route of the Klondike Gold Rush, across the White Pass and along beautiful Lake Bennett to Carcross, a tiny settlement about 150 miles east of the mountains where we planned to establish our base camp. Taking off from this little town, we made a series of photographic flights in order to cover the whole unexplored area with a network of aerial photographs. The roughest and most savagely magnificent country I've ever seen stretched westward from Carcross to the great peaks forming the backbone of the range. Fantastic new mountains, ridges and pinnacles unfolded below us in such profusion one might almost have taken the country for the Himalayas of India. As one purpose of the aerial reconnaissance of this vast unknown area was to establish, if possible, a sledge route through the mountains to the Pacific Ocean, the surfaces of the glaciers had to be studied carefully to find out which were impassable, such as this, and which carried heavy enough blankets of snow, such as this one, to allow us to get through. After this preliminary work, we established our first camp by airplane transport about 50 miles east of the international boundary on the Lowell Glacier. Moving forward on foot and by dog team, we pitched our second base camp at 5,000 feet, 25 miles further up the glacier, at the base of a huge ice cascade 500 feet high, which you see at the right of the picture. To get around this barrier, we had to backpack our equipment by many relays up the drifted side of the glacier. The grade was so steep it was all the dogs could do to plunge up through the powdery snow without any loads at all. The empty sledges had to be pulled up by hand line. Once over the barrier and above the ice cataract on the smooth glacier again, terrific blizzards blocked our progress almost steadily. Day after day, snow fell 40 and 50 inches in depth. Night in the howling gale blowing 50 or 60 miles an hour was often a nightmare. The flapping and crackling of the tents in the wind sounded almost like machine gun fire, and the snow drifting so fast we could hardly keep the tents from being buried. When the weather cleared at last, the tedious work of breaking out the new trail in the soft, fresh snow began once more. Our time had been shortened by the continual storms, and the men as well as the dogs were forced to work the sledges, moving supplies forward 10 or 15 miles a day, practically never resting. We reached our highest altitude, 8,100 feet, at the foot of a colossal unknown peak, over 14,000 feet high, a sheer 6,000-foot precipice rising in Himalayan grandeur directly above us. Smooth snowfields now led westward towards the Alaskan boundary, at last making wonderful terrain for fast sledging. Behind us rose Mount Hubbard, the vast Hubbard Glacier spread out at its feet, a frozen mass which probably contains more snow and ice than all the glaciers in the Alps put together. After reaching the last divide, we sent the dogs back with their Indian driver. The remaining 4 of us pushed westward, hand-sledging the last 20 miles to the snow line, and then backpacking through a chaos of rocks and ice, which we called Hell's Half Mile, along the edge of the Nunatak Glacier. Finally, after 84 days on the ice, we reached our goal, and the waters of Nunatak Fjord glittered at our feet. Thus completing the first successful crossing of the formidable St. Elias Range, and viewing for the first time the most magnificent mountain scenery to be found on the North American continent.